Hi everybody, thanks so much for tuning in. For those watching for the first time, welcome. My name is Dan Pardo, and this is the 19th episode of Pardo's Turn, my weekly Wednesday web series where I analyze a classic show tune from a music director's point of view, and with the help of a special guest, perhaps shed some light on what makes the gems of our musical theater canon so great. Today on the show, I am so happy to introduce Erin Mackey. You may have seen Erin in Chaplin, Wicked, or In Transit among her many Broadway credits. She and I did Amazing Grace together, as well as a reading of a show called The Oliver Experiment. She is just delightful in everything she does. And today we are going to be taking a look at If I Were a Bell from a show that is still on her to-do list, Guys and Dolls by Frank Loesser. I love this song, and what makes the analysis even more fun is knowing that Sarah Brown is drunk when she sings it. Now, I've never been drunk, and I'm sure that you've never been drunk either, but let's examine some of our friends' behavior when a little tipsy on Caribbean cocktails. They might repeat themselves a bit, or have moments of belligerence or bravado, and a surprising amount of comic wit and humor. They also tend to ramble on and on, so with all of that in mind, let's take a look at the song. Like I'll Know earlier in Act 1, If I Were a Bell begins off a bell tone prompted by a question from Sky. But before, her answer was direct and to the point. For I've imagined every bit of him, from his strong moral fiber to the wisdom in his head. I'll know when my love comes along. Melodically, there was confidence there too, with a combination of leaps and steps that didn't meander or linger anywhere too long. If you pardon the pun, Sarah Brown was a woman with a mission. Now, drunk Sarah, on the other hand, is literally in a different country. Rather than textbook harmonic progressions that one might find in a college-level theory class, If I Were a Bell is saturated in jazz, walking bass lines, syncopation, brassy rhythmic hits, and chords better suited for a cocktail lounge, including quite a few tritone substitutions. That's when you sub out a chord with one a tritone away, creating a jazzy half-step relationship with where you're moving to. So, rather than swinging, you have swinging. A lot hipper, right? In the third phrase, the melody walks down to do and then bounces there for most of the measure before jumping wildly on the and of 4 up to fa. Then back down to do and then up to sol. In its third repetition of a major sixth to la. It's a nice melodic contour, and in other contexts I'd probably coach my singer to de-emphasize the leap. You know, the highest note doesn't necessarily mean it's the loudest note. But in this case, we don't need to massage it or underplay. The jump is deliberate, punctuating the ends of these phrases as a tipsy barfly might punctuate the end of her rant by pointing or lurching forward or slapping her thigh. In the second verse, these moments are actually heightened further with the use of the onomatopoeias crack and quack. In general, Loesser's lyric writing is in top form here. I especially like the line, "Pal, if I were a salad, I know I'd be splashing my dressing," not only for its great imagery, but for its bonus internal rhyme as well. The lyrics, "If I were a banner, I'd wave," and "If I were a gate, I'd be swinging," are also supported well musically by a shimmery glissando and big jumps back and forth that emulate the motion of these inanimate objects. But the most obvious, of course, is the implied bell chime at the end. Ding dong, ding dong, ding! And again, because this is drunk Sarah singing, she doesn't have to be subtle about it. Can you have more fun as a classic musical theater ingenue? I don't think so. Hi Erin, how are you?
I'm good.
Thank you so much for coming on, this is so great.
Yes, I'm so happy I could.
You're so well versed in the classic ingenue track. You know, Nellie Forbush, and what are some of the other ones that you've done numerous times? You know, it's
well, South Pacific's what I've done the most. I mean, I did it 3 times. I just got to do Sunday in the Park with George last year. I've done like the Piazza, Clara. I did Joanna and Sweeney Todd.
Great, yes.
That's pretty ingenue.
And even the more kind of contemporary roles have that you've played, you know, have a more classic feel and style, and obviously that speaks to your vocal quality and your range. But do you consider yourself like an old soul, or do you just kind of fall into this category by default?
No, I definitely, people have always told me that I'm an old soul, ever since I was a kid actually, just because, I don't know, I guess I just always sort of knew what I wanted to do, and I knew I wanted to be an actor and a singer, and and just like the Golden Age musicals have always been what I love, and my mom, showed me the Rodgers and Hammerstein movies when I was a kid, and that's what I would want to watch, on repeat, and my voice teacher growing up was so wonderful. My voice teacher, Tim McDougall, just of, telling me how important the Golden Age musicals are.
Sure.
Opera, I did a lot of opera training as well. And I fought him, when I went through like a phase of like, I want to be Eponine and I want to be Annie. And he was like, okay, I mean, we'll work on it, but like, here's the deal. You should probably sing Think of Me from Phantom of the Opera too, And I was like, okay.
But at the same time, a lot of directors now who are rediscovering this classic material want to have it for a contemporary audience. And I think one of the ways that you've been so effective in these ingenue roles is that you have this spunky, fiery quality that reinvigorates a lot of this material that others might dismiss as dusty or dated.
Thanks. Yeah, I mean, I think it's important with these shows to rediscover them for, we're in 2018, we see these shows through a different lens, and I think, like Bart Scher's been so incredible with his Lincoln Center revivals of re-examining these pieces, and I don't know, not be afraid to empower the women too. I think that's a big thing. Is just like these women have personalities. They they've got needs and wants and quirks and flaws, and that you should look at all of those things.
And I think a lot of it was actually in the source material itself.
I
don't think Rodgers and Hammerstein or Frank Loesser, or whom insert name here, were misogynistic in their writing. It's just maybe. At the time, audiences didn't, weren't prepared to receive it a certain way, or they didn't, highlight things that could have been mined, within.
And now we totally can, and we should embrace that as much as possible. Yeah.
Now, one classic role that at least the song was on your list, and I quickly grabbed it because I love this song, is Sarah Brown from Guys and Dolls. And
I haven't done it.
What people hire her as Sarah Brown.
Yeah.
And she's another one that people think, oh, Sarah Brown, she this hooty soprano, she works in the Mission. No, she on a whim she flies to Havana and gets drunk and basically has what it takes to turn around this whole gambling ring. Yep. And so she has a lot of power,
a lot of fire. I think she's like super adventurous and like looking for an adventure too. Right. She's got this job that, keeps her keeps her there and, keeps her busy and has all these things going on, but that she wants stuff for herself too, and it's curious. I'm curious about that role and just like how much she believes in what she is preaching to, you know, and like how much she's been taught to do that, and so I think that's an interesting thing in her.
One thing I love about Frank Loesser is how diverse he is. You think about Where's Charlie and then Most Happy Fella and How to Succeed in Guys and Dolls, and they're all off in different directions. Yeah. And I think they're all so effective in what they do. He really writes for the material that he's presented.
That's a good point, yeah.
It's kind of like Janine Tesori, I think, is another great example. If you told me that Fun Home and Thoroughly Modern Millie and Shrek were all written by the same person, I'd say you're crazy, and it's true. Right. So one show that I really wish I had seen was In Transit, which was the first a cappella musical on Broadway.
Yes, it was.
What was your, were you involved from the beginning, or were you brought in towards the...
I was involved for several years before it came to Circle in the Square. I did readings for about 4 years, actually, before, and it was just this show that kept coming back, every 6 months or so, it'd be like, In Transit wants to do another reading, and I was like, cool, and I loved the material, I loved the role I was getting to play, this girl, Allie. There had been a production at Primary Stages before that I was not part of, so they had worked on it for much longer than that.
Now, that was a New York story, but you're a West Coast girl, is that right?
Yeah, I'm from California.
When did you move east?
I moved to New York, it's almost 10 years, it'll be 10 years in like this March. And I lived in Chicago for a few years before that. I went to school for 1 year in Pittsburgh before I started working. But so I haven't lived in California for a while, and I've actually always felt more at home, kind of in the East Coast, Midwest, and But In Transit, I mean, I feel like I've lived in New York long enough to be like, oh, I totally understand these stories. It took place mainly on the subway or on the subway platform kind of a thing, and that bond of New Yorkers, and that it's a great equalizer that everyone is on this train stuck together. But it was probably one of the hardest things I've ever done on stage, but it was so much fun. It was a great group of people.
What was the process of like just getting your pitch from songs?
We had in-ear monitors.
Okay.
It was pretty high tech. So we had in-ear monitors, we had our microphones for the show, and then we also had packs that we had to wear for our in-ears so that we could adjust the volume. We couldn't mix ourselves. We had this wonderful woman, Bridget, who was one of our sound mixers, and she was backstage with us mixing what was in our ears, and we also had Gabe, who was out in the house mixing what the audience heard.
Oh, that's amazing.
Yeah, so we had Rick Hip Flores was our music director.
Oh, yeah.
Rick's so awesome, and just like so calm, which was so good for us, because we're all like, oh, I can't hear, am I sharp, am I flat? And he was like,
did you do acapella singing and like, well, you said you only did the year of college, but did you?
No, I had never done it before. I mean, the readings is where I sang acapella for the first time, so I learned a lot, and Deke Sharon was our vocal arranger. He does like the Pitch Perfect movies and stuff, like he's big in the acapella world, and he was so helpful in just explaining the little things about acapella that you wouldn't necessarily know if you're a singer.
But it's important that, even though it's an acapella show, it's a show with people and stories, and it requires storytellers and actors. You don't go to Broadway to watch an acapella concert. Exactly.
Yeah. We were telling these people's stories, and it was really a beautiful thing to be in a show where you pop out and you solo and you have your storyline, but then for the majority of the show, you are backing up your other actors. You know what I mean? They can't sing without you.
Right.
So it was like a real close bond between the cast and Rick, who was like our honorary cast member too, because we all just had to depend so much on one another. Ask me, how do I feel? Ask me now that we're cozy and clinging. Well, sir, all I can say is if I were a bell, I'd be ringing. From the moment we kissed tonight, that's the way I've just gotta behave. Boy, if I were a lamp, I'd light, and if I were a banner, I'd wave. Ask me, how do I feel? Little me with my quiet upbringing. Well, sir, all I can say is if I were a gate, I'd be swinging, and if I were a clock, I'd start pumping my spring, and if I were a bell, I'd go ding dong, ding. Ask me, how do I feel from this chemistry lesson I'm learning?
Chemistry?
Yeah, chemistry. Well, sir, all I can say is if I were a bridge, I'd be burning. Yes, I knew my morale would crack from the wonderful way that you looked. Boy, if I were a duck, I'd quack, and if I were a goose, I'd be cooked. Ask me, how do I feel? Ask me now that we're fondly caressing. Pal, if I were a salad, I know I'd be splashing my dressing. Ask me how to describe this whole beautiful thing. Well, if I were a bell, I'd go ding dong, ding dong, ding. So next up, I'm doing a show called The Rivals. It's happening at Bristol Riverside Theater.
South Jersey, sir?
It's close. It's in Pennsylvania, but it's past Trenton.
Okay.
It's like 20 minutes outside of Trenton.
They're Eagles fans regardless. So. Well, thank you so much for coming on.
Yes,
this was an absolute pleasure. If you like this episode, give us a thumbs up, and please like, share, subscribe. We will see you next Wednesday on Pardo's Turn.
Well, if I